Rami was a quiet man who lived most of his days inside the wide halls of a mining station that orbited a lonely planet far from Earth. He was not a soldier, nor an explorer, but an engineer who fixed broken machines, cleaned clogged pipes, and kept the power grid alive for the small group of workers who depended on him. He liked silence, the hum of engines, and the simple rhythm of work. For him the stars were beautiful to look at but also distant and cold. That night the silence broke. Rami was repairing a faulty air filter when the warning siren echoed through the empty corridors. His hands froze on the metal casing. Sirens meant trouble, and trouble in space rarely gave time to prepare. He closed the panel, grabbed his toolkit, and hurried to the control room. On the main screen, glowing lines showed a fast-moving object entering the system. The station sensors struggled to track it, but he saw enough to know it was not a piece of rock or mining debris. The shape was too smooth, too controlled, too alive. Then the image cleared for 1 second, and his heart raced. It was a ship, small and damaged, trailing fire as it fell toward the barren surface of the planet below. Rami whispered to himself, "That is not one of ours." No signal codes appeared, no human frequency answered. The object burned through the thin atmosphere of the planet and crashed in a flash of light near the mining fields. Dust clouds rose high into the sky. The station shook slightly as if the planet itself had groaned. Rami stared at the screen, torn between fear and curiosity. Every story told in the station bars warned of this moment. If something came from beyond, it would not be a friend. It would be a conqueror, a hunter, or something worse. Yet he felt a strange pull inside his chest. He was alone tonight. The others were working in the far tunnels, days away. He had a choice: stay safe in the steel walls of the station, or go down and see who had arrived. His hands moved before his doubts could stop him. He powered up a small rover, loaded basic supplies, and guided it toward the crash site. The trip was short but heavy with silence. The planet's surface was gray and lifeless, scattered with sharp rocks that gleamed under the pale starlight. As he neared the site, smoke rose high, twisting like a black flag. When he reached the crater, he stopped the rover at a distance. The small ship was half buried in the rock, its hull cracked and glowing red with heat. Sparks jumped from broken panels. Rami tightened his gloves and approached carefully. Each step made the dust crunch under his boots. His heart thumped louder than the wind. Then he saw movement. A figure climbed out of the wreck, tall and wrapped in dark armor that shimmered like wet stone. The being staggered, but its head turned sharply when it sensed him. Even at a distance Rami felt the weight of its gaze. The figure pulled off part of its helmet, and for the first time Rami saw the face of someone not human. She looked fierce, her skin pale with faint marks across the cheeks, her eyes sharp and burning with pride. Though she was wounded, she stood tall as if the crash were nothing more than a stumble. Her voice carried across the dust, clear and commanding. "Be good, human. It will not hurt much." Rami froze. The words were spoken in his own tongue, though broken and heavy with accent. She must have learned it from captured signals, he thought. She stepped forward with slow strength, one hand pressed against her side where blood seeped through the armor. Rami's instincts screamed at him to run, but another thought rose stronger. If she had wanted him dead, she would have attacked already. Instead, she was trying to intimidate him. She believed herself in control even while bleeding. His voice shook but did not break. "You are hurt. You should sit down." Her eyes narrowed in disbelief. She expected fear, not calm. She straightened her back though her legs trembled. Your people will kneel soon. I am not weak. You will serve. Rami looked at the broken ship behind her, then at her unsteady stance. You cannot even stand without pain. Serving you is not possible tonight. Her face darkened with anger. She took one step closer, but her foot slipped in the dust and she almost fell. Rami did not laugh. He simply stepped back slowly, measuring the distance between them, his mind already working like the gears of the machines he repaired. She was dangerous, yes, but she was also vulnerable. For a moment they stared at each other in silence. The cold wind pushed the smoke aside, and the stars above shone clear. Rami felt the weight of history in that moment. Humanity had always wondered when first contact would come. Now it had arrived, and it stood bleeding in front of him, still trying to act like a conqueror. He finally spoke again, steady this time. If you want to live, you must let me help you. If you want to rule, you must first survive. She gave a bitter smile, though her face tightened with pain. Human words are soft. They will not save you when my people arrive. Rami stepped closer, slowly, without fear. He offered his hand, not as a servant but as someone willing to pull her from the dust. For a second she looked at the hand as if it were a strange tool she had never seen. Her pride battled with her need. At last, she placed her hand in his, heavy and strong, and he helped her stand straight. Neither spoke as the wind howled around them, carrying away the smoke and dust. Rami knew one thing with certainty. This was only the beginning. Rami guided the tall armored stranger back toward his rover. Her weight pressed heavily against his shoulder, and though she tried to hide it, every few steps her legs faltered. Pride kept her from admitting pain, but Rami could feel the tension in her grip. The silence between them stretched like a rope pulled tight, broken only by the sound of their boots crunching on stone. When they reached the rover, Rami opened the side hatch and gestured for her to climb inside. She hesitated, as if stepping into his machine would mark her defeat. Her eyes flicked to him with sharp suspicion, but her strength was fading. At last she ducked her head and slid inside, her tall frame barely fitting in the seat. Rami powered up the rover and turned it toward the mining station. The engines hummed, carrying them across the barren surface. He kept his eyes on the horizon, but he could feel her gaze on him. She studied his movements, perhaps searching for weakness. After several minutes she finally spoke. You are calm for a prey. Why? Rami answered without looking at her. I am an engineer. Problems are part of my work. You are a problem I must solve. Her lips curled, though not in amusement. I am no broken machine. I am Tira of the Velan Guard. My kind does not fall to dust and metal. Rami finally looked at her. Your ship lies broken behind us. You fell, just like anyone else could. For the first time, she looked away. She pressed her hand harder against her side where the armor was cracked. Rami noticed the faint green stain on her glove, but he said nothing. Instead, he focused on reaching the safety of the station before her strength gave out. When they arrived, he helped her down from the rover. The mining station stood tall and silent, its metal walls glowing faintly under the stars. As the hatch closed behind them, warm air filled the corridor. Tira straightened her back and looked around with an expression caught between disgust and curiosity. This is where you hide, she said. Small, weak, fragile. Rami ignored her insult and guided her into the medical bay. He motioned for her to sit on the long bench. She remained standing, her eyes following every movement of his hands as he opened the medical kit. You wish to play healer, she said coldly. Do not mistake this for trust. When my strength returns, you will kneel. Rami took out a scanner and passed it gently over her injured side. The screen lit up, showing fractured plating and internal bleeding. He frowned but kept his voice steady. If I do nothing, you will not live long enough to demand anything. For a moment her proud mask cracked. She watched his hands carefully as he prepared a spray of coagulant. Her fingers twitched as if she considered grabbing him, but in the end she let him continue. The spray hissed softly, sealing the wound enough to stop the worst of the bleeding. When Rami stepped back, she touched the treated area in silence. She seemed almost surprised at the lack of pain. Yet the moment of calm did not last. Suddenly, with a burst of strength, she lunged at him. Her arm shot forward, trying to grip his throat. Rami had expected this. He sidestepped quickly, grabbing a handle on the wall and pulling down a lever. The bench beneath her hissed, releasing a clamp that locked around her legs. She fell back with a loud crash, pinned to the seat. Her eyes blazed with fury. You dare trap me, human. Rami steadied his breath. You tried to attack me after I helped you. I had to prepare for that. She strained against the clamp, muscles bulging under her armor. But the mining station was built for heavy machines. The lock held firm. Rami stayed at a safe distance, watching as she realized she could not escape. For long moments she struggled, then stopped, breathing heavily. Anger burned in her face, but beneath it Rami saw something else: uncertainty. She had entered as the conqueror, but now she sat as the captive. You think this means victory, she said through clenched teeth. You are only delaying your fate. Rami shook his head. I do not want victory. I want peace. But I will defend myself if I must. Her eyes narrowed. She searched his face as though trying to read a hidden lie, but found only calm resolve. At last she leaned back against the bench, the fire in her gaze dimming into something colder. Strange, she muttered. Humans I studied were loud, fearful, weak. Yet you are quiet, steady, and stubborn. Perhaps the stories of your kind are wrong. Rami placed his tools back into the case. Perhaps the stories of your kind are wrong too. Silence filled the room. She sat trapped but no longer struggling. He stood near the console, ready to release the clamp if she showed a hint of reason. For the first time, he noticed the small tremor in her hands, not from rage but from exhaustion. Hours passed slowly. Rami checked the systems of the station, ensuring power and oxygen levels remained stable. All the while, he felt her eyes following him, her pride wounded deeper than her body. Finally, he returned to the bench and spoke quietly. You need rest. Fighting will not help you heal. She gave a sharp laugh, though it carried no joy. Rest in chains. You insult me. Chains can keep you safe, Rami replied. Without them you would have harmed both of us. Her expression softened for just a second, then hardened again. You may hold me now, human, but remember this. My people will come for me. When they do, your small station will burn. Rami met her gaze without fear. Maybe. But until then, you are here. And here, you will not be my ruler. You will be my guest. She looked at him strangely, as if the word guest confused her more than any threat. Her lips pressed together, and she said no more. That night, Rami sat at the control panel, watching the stars beyond the glass. Behind him, Tira rested against the bench, her pride battling her weariness. She had declared herself conqueror, but now she was bound in the heart of a human outpost. Rami knew the balance of power had shifted. Yet he also knew this was not the end. This was only the first step in a longer game, one that neither of them fully understood. The mining station was never meant to hold prisoners. It was a place for machines, minerals, and the few people who kept the operation alive. Now, inside its cold walls, a stranger from another world sat on a locked bench while Rami worked nearby. The silence was heavy. Rami checked oxygen levels, repaired a broken panel, and prepared food packets from the small supply store. Every movement he made, he felt her eyes following him. Tira of the Velan Guard, conqueror by her own claim, now sat watching him with eyes that burned with pride but also carried a faint shadow of unease. When Rami placed a food packet on the table near her, she lifted her head slightly. The seal broke with a hiss, and the smell of warm grain filled the air. She did not reach for it. Instead she studied him as if the offer itself were a trap. "You feed me," she said slowly, "after locking me in chains." Rami replied calmly. "I lock you because you attacked me. I feed you because you are alive. Both can be true." Her lips tightened. She leaned back against the wall, refusing the food at first. Minutes passed in silence before her pride bent just enough. She reached for the packet, tearing it open with sharp hands. She ate quickly, though her face never softened. "You are strange," she muttered between bites. "Most humans would beg for mercy if I stood before them. You fix my wounds. You give me food. Yet you dare to bind me." Rami did not look at her. He adjusted a screen, noting the power flow. "I bind you so I can work in peace. I help you because it is right." Her eyes narrowed. "Right? There is no right. There is power. The strong take, the weak kneel. That is truth." Now Rami turned toward her. His voice stayed quiet, but his words carried weight. "If that were truth, you would not be here. You would be standing above me, unbroken, commanding me to kneel. But you are here, injured, and I am the one who helps you. Power fades. Right endures." For a moment her face showed surprise, as if no one had spoken to her that way before. Then she laughed, though the sound was rough. "You speak with soft strength. Do you think your words change what is real? My people will come. They will crush this station into dust. Then your right will die with you." Rami shook his head. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they will find that humans are not so easy to crush." The room grew quiet again. Only the hum of machines filled the air. Later, when Rami sat at the console checking the star map, Tira spoke again. Her voice was lower, less sharp, but still steady. "I studied your kind from signals. Your history is filled with war. You kill your own people over land and pride. How do you claim peace now?" Rami leaned back in his chair, thinking. "Yes, we fight. Yes, we kill. But we also build. We create. We heal. For every war, there is also a bridge, a book, a song. We are not one thing only. We are many things." Tira tilted her head, curious despite herself. "And which are you, Rami? Builder or killer?" Rami's eyes met hers. "I am a builder. But if I must, I will defend what I build." Her gaze lingered on him for several breaths before she looked away. She pressed her hand against the repaired armor on her side. The wound no longer bled, but the weakness reminded her of her failure. She hated weakness, yet here she was, alive only because this human had chosen to save her. That thought stung more than the injury. As hours passed, the station lights dimmed to night cycle. Rami prepared his small cot near the control room, leaving her in the medical bay. But before he could rest, her voice carried across the hall. "Why?" He stopped. "Why what?" She looked at him with steady eyes. "Why not end me? You had the chance. A dead enemy cannot harm you. Yet you let me live." Rami stood in the doorway, shadows falling across his face. "Because if I kill every stranger who threatens me, then I become what I fear. If I help, maybe I learn something. Maybe you learn something too." Her expression was unreadable. She did not answer. He left her with those words and went to rest, though his mind remained restless. The next morning cycle began with the soft hum of power surging through the station's walls. Rami worked early, checking the generator. When he returned to the bay, he found Tira awake and watching him. She spoke first. "You believe kindness is strength. I believe it is weakness. But last night, as I lay here, I thought of your words. Perhaps there is a kind of strength in not striking when you can." Rami set down his tools. "It is harder to stay your hand than to swing it. That is true strength." Her eyes studied him carefully. She seemed torn between mocking his belief and admitting something she did not wish to admit. Finally she leaned forward, her voice almost a whisper. "If your people all think as you do, then you are more dangerous than I was told." Rami gave a small smile. "Perhaps we are." She leaned back again, hiding her thoughts behind a mask of pride. Yet in that moment, something had shifted. She was no longer only the conqueror speaking down to the human. Now she was also the student, unwilling but unable to stop learning. The day stretched on. Rami repaired old mining drones, welding sparks lighting the room. Tira asked questions she did not mean to ask. She wanted to know why he worked with such patience, why he fixed broken things instead of discarding them. Rami answered simply, "Because every machine had worth, just as every life had worth." She scoffed at the words, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of thought. By the time the station lights dimmed again, the exchange of words had carved something new between them. Not trust, not friendship, but the beginning of an understanding neither of them had expected. As Rami prepared for rest once more, Tira finally spoke in a tone less harsh than before. "Perhaps I will listen again tomorrow, human. Perhaps your words hold more weight than I thought." Rami paused at the doorway, then nodded. "Then tomorrow, we talk again." The silence that followed was no longer heavy with threat. It carried something different, something fragile but growing. The mining station lived on thin margins. Power had to be balanced carefully, oxygen recycled with precision, and machines maintained with care. Rami was used to this constant battle with failure, but now he had another challenge. Tira remained in the medical bay, stronger than before, her pride slowly rising again. She was not free, yet she no longer looked like a prisoner who had lost all hope. That morning cycle began with a sharp alarm. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and the console near Rami beeped with urgent signals. He hurried to the control room. The oxygen system showed dangerous fluctuations. Pressure levels dropped and rose in uneven bursts. If the system failed, the entire station would become unlivable in hours. Rami gritted his teeth. Not today. He rushed to gather his tools. As he passed the medical bay, Tira spoke from the bench where she still sat bound by the locking clamps. "What is this sound?" she demanded. Oxygen system, Rami answered quickly. It is failing. If I do not fix it, we both die. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. Then unchain me. I can work. I am trained in machines far beyond yours. Rami shook his head. You attacked me once. I cannot risk it again. Her voice grew sharper. You think I would choose death here, chained in your weak metal station? Release me and I will help. Rami looked at her for a long moment. She spoke with pride, but there was also truth in her words. Yet trust could not be given so quickly. He turned away. No, I will handle it. With that, he left her, carrying his tools into the narrow passages that led to the oxygen control room. The control room was hot and filled with the smell of burning metal. Sparks fell from a panel where wires had melted. Pressure readings danced wildly on the screen. Rami knelt beside the panel, pulling out tools. His hands moved fast, but the damage was worse than he expected. Several main wires were completely burned out, and the spare parts in storage were not enough for a perfect repair. He sat back on his heels, thinking hard. To survive, he needed to find a way to make broken pieces work like new. His mind searched through the lessons of years spent fixing mining tools. He remembered how he once used old tubing to carry power when a cable broke, and how he joined small circuits into a stronger line when larger parts were missing. He set to work. He cut off the burned wires, stripped the ends, and searched through spare boxes. He pulled out fragments of unused drones, pieces of broken drills, and scraps of old circuits. With steady hands, he began weaving them into a strange but functional network. Sweat ran down his face. The alarms grew louder. But slowly, the wild readings on the screen began to calm. Pressure steadied, oxygen levels rose, and the red lights dimmed back to yellow. Rami sat back, exhausted but relieved. It will hold. Not perfect, but enough. When he returned to the medical bay, he found Tira waiting, her eyes sharp with curiosity. You fixed it, she said, not as a question but as a statement. Yes, Rami replied. She leaned forward slightly, chains clinking as she moved. Show me how. What did you use? Rami frowned. Why do you care? Her lips curved, though not in a smile. Because I heard the alarms. I know the system was close to death. I know you lacked proper parts. Yet you stand here alive, and the air still flows. You did something strange. I want to see it. Rami hesitated. But there was no harm in showing her. He guided her down the corridor, keeping a careful distance. When they reached the repaired panel, he pointed at the tangled but working network of wires and scraps. She studied it closely, her eyes tracing every connection. Finally she spoke, her voice almost soft. You used broken pieces. Parts not meant for the system. Yet you forced them to work together. This is not skill my people respect. We build strong machines. If they break, we discard them and make new ones. But you bend weakness into strength. Rami crossed his arms. That is what humans do. We use what we have. We survive by making more from less. Her gaze stayed fixed on the wires, her mind turning. At last she looked at him. Perhaps this is why your kind endures. You are not strong, but you adapt. You are not fast, but you endure. You are like water that finds a path through stone. Rami gave a small nod. Yes. That is what keeps us alive. They walked back to the medical bay. For the first time, Tira did not hold her head high with arrogance. Instead, she looked thoughtful, as if she had witnessed something that shook her beliefs. When she sat again on the bench, she spoke with less sharpness. Perhaps I judged you too quickly. My people call humans fragile. But I see now that fragility hides another kind of power. Your machines are ugly. Your methods are clumsy. Yet they work. That is dangerous. Rami placed his tools away. Dangerous, yes. Because we survive when others expect us to fail. Her eyes locked on his. For a long moment, no words were spoken. Then she leaned back, her voice quiet but filled with new weight. If my commanders saw what I saw today, they would not laugh at humans. They would fear you. Rami did not answer. He knew fear was not what he wanted. But he also knew her words were true. Humanity's strength was not in shining armor or giant ships. It was in minds that refused to surrender, in hands that refused to stop building. That night cycle, the station was calm again. Rami lay on his cot, staring at the ceiling. Tira remained locked in the medical bay, but her silence was different now. It no longer carried only pride and anger. It carried thought. She had come believing herself untouchable, certain of her people's superiority. Yet a single human engineer, with scraps and patience, had shown her something new. The station's days grew into a rhythm. Rami repaired machines, checked the systems, and prepared food. Tira sat in the medical bay, regaining her strength. The wound on her side healed little by little, and the pale look of exhaustion left her face. Her armor, though damaged, still clung to her like a reminder of who she believed she was. But with every cycle of light and dark, her pride swelled again. She had seen Rami's skill, and she respected it in silence, but deep inside she could not accept that she had been chained, fed, and kept alive by a human who should have been beneath her. Her kind believed in strength above all else, and the thought of sitting bound while he worked freely burned hotter than any fire. One evening cycle, as Rami carried tools back to storage, Tira spoke from the bench. Her voice was calm, but her eyes shone with determination. You think me a prisoner. But I am still well on guard. My body is healing. Soon I will rise, and when I do, no chain will hold me. Rami looked at her without fear. If you rise with wisdom, you will be welcome. If you rise with anger, you will only fall again. She clenched her fists. You speak as though you are master here. But you are only alive because I have not crushed you. Rami set the tools aside. His voice remained steady. You tried once. You failed. If you try again, I will stop you once more. But I would rather you did not try at all. Her pride could not bear his calm certainty. That night she planned. She studied the clamps, the timing of his steps, the tools he used. She would not wait for her people to come. She would prove that her strength was greater, even in this human-made cage. The chance came sooner than expected. The next morning cycle, Rami returned to the medical bay with a tray of food. He set it on the table, turned slightly to check a screen, and in that instant she moved. With sudden force, she pulled her legs upward, twisting with strength she had saved for days. The clamp screeched, strained, and then snapped loose. Before Rami could react, she surged forward, her tall frame rising above him. She lunged, her hands reaching for his shoulders to throw him to the ground. But Rami had prepared for this possibility. He had placed a second lock beneath the bench, one hidden in the floor. As her weight shifted, his hand slammed the control. Metal arms shot up around her legs and waist, clamping her in place again. She fell forward awkwardly, her momentum lost, and the strike she meant to land became nothing more than a stumble. Her armor clanged against the bench. Pain flashed across her face. She tried to twist free, but the new locks held tighter than before. Rami stepped back, breathing fast but keeping control. You chose pride over reason. And pride has hurt you again. She growled in frustration, pulling hard against the restraints. But the more she struggled, the more the bruises on her body reminded her of weakness. Finally she slumped back against the bench, breathing hard. You shame me, she hissed. You chain me like an animal. You make me fall before you. Rami's voice softened, though it carried truth like a blade. I did not make you fall. Your pride did. You thought strength alone would free you. But strength without wisdom is only foolishness. Her eyes burned with anger. Yet behind the fire there was also pain, not only of body but of spirit. She had once told him, "Be good human, it will not hurt much." Now the words echoed in her own mind, bitter and sharp, because it was she who sat unable to rise, bruised not by his cruelty but by her own arrogance. For a long time she sat in silence, her chest rising and falling. Rami did not mock her, did not smile at her failure. He only placed the food back on the table and stepped away. You should eat, he said quietly. Rest will heal more than chains can harm. She looked at him, her pride fighting against the strange calm he always carried. At last she turned her head aside, unable to answer. Hours passed. The station remained quiet. Rami worked on repairing an old drone in the corner of the bay, while Tira sat chained, her thoughts heavy. She remembered battles where her enemies had fallen before her with fear in their eyes. She remembered her commander's words, that humans were fragile and weak. Yet here was one human who had faced her fury not with fear, but with patience. Finally she spoke again, her voice lower than before. Why do you not strike me when I fail? Why do you not mock me when I fall? If I held you, I would not show such mercy. Rami looked up from the drone. Because I do not want you as my enemy. I want you as someone who understands. If I mock you, if I strike you, then I gain nothing but hate. But if I show patience, maybe you learn. Her hands clenched slowly. She did not want to admit it, but some part of her knew his words carried weight. Still, her pride resisted. You believe too much in words, she said. But when war comes, words will not shield you. Rami nodded. Perhaps. But words can stop a war before it begins. Strength builds walls. Words build bridges. Both matter. Her eyes lingered on him. She wanted to argue, to tear his calm apart with sharp answers, but the energy left her. She leaned back against the bench, letting silence fill the room again. That night cycle, the lights dimmed and the station grew quiet. Rami sat by the console, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Behind him, Tira rested uneasily, her pride wounded deeper than her body. She closed her eyes, and in the silence her own thoughts spoke louder than any words. She had failed not once, but twice. And each time, it was not human weakness she had seen. It was human patience, human cleverness, human endurance. Her people had taught her that humans were prey. But now, as the bruises on her body reminded her of defeat, she felt a shadow of doubt. Perhaps humans were not prey at all. Perhaps they were something else. Something her commanders had not prepared her for. She did not say it aloud, not yet. But in her heart, She knew her pride had been cracked, and through that crack the truth was slowly entering. The station moved quietly through the dark sea of stars. Its outer lights blinked in steady rhythm, a lone sign of life in the silent void. Inside, the air carried the soft hum of machines and the faint sound of Rami's tools tapping against metal. Days had passed since Tira's failed attempt to break free. Her body was stronger now, the wound nearly closed. But her pride was wounded in another way. She had faced defeat not by battle or weapons, but by patience and foresight. She could not escape the thought that the human had outmatched her without striking a single blow. On the bench she sat, arms resting at her side, the new clamps holding her securely. She watched Rami as he worked on a control panel near the wall. Sparks flew gently as his hands moved with skill. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why do you keep me alive? My people would never do the same. They would see weakness, and they would end it. Why do you waste your strength on me?" Rami did not look up. "Because I do not see you as waste. I see you as someone who can change. That is worth more than ending life." Her voice hardened. "Change is weakness. The strong remain as they are." Rami finally turned and met her eyes. "No. The strong learn. The weak refuse to grow. A stone never changes, and in time it crumbles. A tree bends with the wind, and it survives." His words sat heavy in the air. Tira wanted to argue, but something inside her held back. She remembered the moment her strike had failed, the moment his calm had broken her fury. Perhaps change was not weakness. Perhaps refusing to change was. Later that day cycle, an alarm rang across the station. A red light flashed on the console. Rami rushed to the screen, his face tense. "What is it?" Tira demanded. Rami's fingers flew over the keys. "A ship. Large. Coming this way. Its signal is Velon." Her heart raced. Her people. Her chance. For a moment, she felt hope, but also a strange fear. If her people came, they would see her chained. They would see her defeated. The shame would be heavier than any wound. "They will take me," she said quickly. "You must release me. If they find me bound like this, I will be judged unworthy." Rami shook his head. "If I release you now, what will you do? Stand with me, or strike me again?" Her jaw tightened. She did not answer. The ship's signal grew stronger. Soon it would be close enough to dock. Rami's mind raced. He had no chance to fight a Velon crew. His small tools and drones were useless against their strength. But he had one weapon, the same he had used from the beginning: words. He looked at Tira. "When they arrive, you will have a choice. You can tell them I am your prisoner, and they will kill me. Or you can tell them the truth, that I saved you when you were dying. Which voice will you use?" Her chest rose and fell. The weight of choice pressed heavy on her. The ship docked with a deep metallic thud. The airlock doors hissed. Heavy steps echoed through the station as 3 Velon soldiers entered. Their armor gleamed, and their eyes burned with sharp pride. "Tira," one of them called. "You are alive. We thought you lost." She struggled to stand, the clamps still holding her. "I live. But this human, he kept me." Their eyes turned to Rami, who stood near the console. His hands were calm at his side, though his heart beat hard. The leader of the group stepped forward. "You captured one of ours, human. That is crime. Speak before I end you." Rami's voice did not shake. She came to me with anger. She struck. I stopped her. She was wounded. I chose to heal her, not kill her. That is the truth. The soldiers laughed, sharp and harsh. You healed her? A human healed a Velan guard? Lies. Tira's eyes darted between them and Rami. Her chest burned. She could feel their scorn, the heavy weight of her people's pride pressing down on her. They wanted her to mock the human, to dismiss him as weak, to restore her honor. Yet her memory fought against it. She remembered his patience, his quiet strength, his calm that had defeated her. She remembered his words, that strength without wisdom was foolishness. Slowly, she raised her voice. He speaks truth. The room froze. The soldiers stared. He healed me, she continued. He kept me alive when I could not stand. He chained me, yes, but only because I struck him without reason. If not for him, I would not be breathing. The soldiers' eyes widened. Their leader stepped closer, his voice sharp. You praise a human? You lower yourself before him. Tira's fists clenched. Pride screamed inside her to deny it. But something stronger than pride spoke from her heart. I do not lower myself, she said. I speak truth. And truth is strength. He is no prey. He is no weakling. He is human, and he has shown more courage than many of us. The silence that followed was heavy. The soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure of how to answer. The leader growled, but he did not strike. Instead he turned sharply. We will report this. But we do not stay here. With that, the three soldiers withdrew, their boots echoing down the hall. The docking clamps released. The Velan ship pulled away, leaving only silence behind. Tira slumped back on the bench, her chest heaving. She had spoken the words. She had stood against her own people's pride. And in that moment, she felt something new. It was not shame. It was not defeat. It was freedom. Rami approached slowly. His eyes were calm as always, but there was also something else in them. Respect. You chose truth, he said softly. She looked at him. Her pride still lived, but it no longer ruled her. You gave me no choice. You showed me what I did not want to see. And what is that? That humans are not weak. That humans can be strong in ways we do not understand. Rami nodded. Then maybe one day, others will learn too. For the first time since they had met, her lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. It was not wide, not warm, but it was real. That night, the station floated quiet once more. Tira rested without chains, for the first time since her capture. Rami had released them, trusting her choice. She lay on the bench, her eyes on the stars beyond the window. For the first time, she did not see the endless dark as empty. She saw it as full of voices waiting to be heard, truths waiting to be spoken. The mining station floated silently in the cold expanse of space. The stars stretched endlessly, distant but shining, and the hum of the station's systems filled the corridors. Rami moved through the halls, checking the panels, adjusting controls, and quietly observing the world around him. The past days had been difficult. He had faced not only mechanical failures and a crashed ship, but also a proud alien warrior who had entered his life with fire and rage. Tira, now free of her restraints, walked carefully through the corridors. Her body was strong again, her wound healed, yet her pride carried a new weight. She had faced the human she thought was weak and found herself humbled. His patience, his calm, and his cleverness had changed the way she saw strength. No longer did she see humans as fragile. Now she understood that their resilience, their ingenuity, and their courage were a force of their own. A signal flashed on the console. Rami's eyes went to the screen. Another Velan ship approached the station. It was larger than the first, and its design spoke of authority. Tira stepped closer to the console, her voice low but steady. "They have come for me," she said. "This will be their test. Your life and mine are at stake." Rami nodded. "Then we prepare. Not with weapons alone, but with reason. Strength is not only muscle. It is mind, patience, and courage." She studied him, seeing now the truth in his words. She had entered his station with the belief that he was prey, a creature to be dominated. She had been wrong. And now, she realized, the coming Velan force would judge not only her but the humans she had underestimated. When the ship docked, the station's airlock hissed. Massive armored soldiers poured in, their weapons ready, eyes sharp and proud. Tira stepped forward. "These are my people. You will see the truth of what I tell you." The leader approached, his armor gleaming under the lights. "You are free, Tira, but we see a human among your chains. Explain this." She lifted her chin. "He is not my prisoner. He is my savior. He kept me alive when I could not stand. He is human, and his strength is unlike anything I expected." The Velan soldiers laughed, sharp and doubtful. "This is impossible. A human cannot match a Velan guard." Rami stepped forward, calm and measured. "I do not fight like you. I do not rely on strength alone. I use my mind. I use patience. I use endurance. That is how humans survive. That is how humans win." The leader's eyes narrowed. He studied Rami carefully, sensing no threat but noting confidence. "Words do not save ships or planets. Power does." Rami nodded. "Power can destroy. Wisdom can preserve. You can destroy me with your ships and weapons, yet I have preserved my home, my people, and this warrior by using what I know. My strength is in endurance and understanding." Tira watched him, pride and respect growing in her gaze. She had thought her commanders would command fear and obedience. Instead, she realized that humans did not follow the same rules. They could survive when all odds were against them. They could adapt. They could triumph not through conquest but through courage, ingenuity, and wisdom. The leader of the Velan hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "If this is true, your people must see it. You face the galaxy with words, not weapons." Rami's voice was steady. "We face danger with knowledge, unity, and will. That is humanity's strength. Strength without understanding is blind. Understanding without courage is useless. Combine the two, and you endure where others fall." The silence stretched. The Velan soldiers glanced at Tira, then back at Rami. He did not flinch. He did not boast. He spoke truth, and truth carries a power that no armor can block. For the first time, Tira's commander felt hesitation. He realized that humans could not be measured by their appearance. They were not strong in the way Velans expected. They were strong in ways that could surprise, defeat, and outlast. Tira stepped forward. "Judge him not by size or weaponry," she said firmly. "Judge him by courage, by mind, by patience. He kept me alive when I was proud and foolish. He is human. He is strong." The Velan leader looked at her, then at Rami. The truth in her voice silenced any argument. They could not deny what they had seen, even if their pride resisted. At last, the leader stepped back. Perhaps we have underestimated your kind. Humans may endure, survive, and even teach what we believe to be strength. Rami bowed slightly, a gesture of respect rather than submission. We do not seek to teach by force. We teach by living our truth. The Velon soldiers withdrew from the station, their confidence shaken but not broken. They left knowing that humanity's strength was not measured in brute force, but in the courage to act wisely, to endure hardship, and to protect life even in the face of danger. Tira remained by Rami's side. She looked at him, seeing him not as a weak human, but as a being of remarkable endurance. She had entered his station with pride and expectation of dominance. Now she had witnessed the strength of humanity firsthand. "You were right," she said quietly. "Strength is not only what can crush or conquer. Strength is also what can endure, protect, and create." Rami nodded. "That is humanity. And it is not in one of us alone. It is in all of us, when we choose to be more than fear or anger." For the first time, Tira did not feel shame. She felt respect, admiration, and even a strange sense of partnership. She had faced a human and learned a truth that would change her forever. The station floated silently in the starlight. Machines hummed, systems glowed, and the quiet air held a sense of peace. Rami and Tira stood together, not as prisoner and captor, but as equals who had learned from each other. Outside, the galaxy stretched, full of unknown dangers. Ships would come, wars might rise, and challenges would test humanity again. But within this station, a lesson had been made clear. Strength is not only power. Strength is courage, wisdom, and the ability to endure. Strength is what makes humans thrive where others fail. Tira looked to the stars and then at Rami. "Your people will survive," she said. "They will endure, and others will have to see it for themselves." Rami smiled softly. "Yes. And humanity will continue, learning, building, and protecting what matters. That is our way." Together, they watched the stars. Two beings from different worlds, bound by circumstance and respect, understood a truth far greater than fear or pride. In the heart of the galaxy, humanity had revealed itself not with weapons, but with courage, ingenuity, and endurance.